Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. 25 years of the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. This is the anniversary season. I'm Bob Pompeani. We have a lot to get into tonight. We'll talk about Jake Guentzel, his future with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He has 1 year left on a contract. This is it. Free agency, trade him, keep him. What do they do? We'll talk about that. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have finally hired an offensive coordinator. And here to talk about it is your panel. We have Andrew Fillipponi, PM team 93.7 The Fan, far left, a.k.a. Johnny Cash. Tonight in the middle, it's Joe Stark Raven Mad, Starkey, from the Cook and Joe Show. And Jeff Hathhorn, he does everything at 93.7 The Fan. Whenever you need something, you go to Jeff Hathhorn. All right, let's talk about Arthur Smith. Joe, I know you're passionate about this topic. You spoke a lot of time this week on the topic. Do you think the Steelers made a good choice? Do you think they did a good enough job searching for the man who ultimately became the OC?
Well, if I answer no to A, then I have to answer no to B, so I'll answer no to both. I'm lukewarm. Obviously, I'm willing to give the guy a chance. I can't separate Derrick Henry from his success in Tennessee. It's like having Michael Jordan in your backfield. And then he was hired in Atlanta to fix an offense that Dan Quinn had basically ruined, and it didn't work. He failed for 3 years. He was still a coordinator, still calling the plays. It's not like this guy, should just judge him separately as a head coach. No, he was there to call the offense, to run the offense, to identify the right quarterback, and his best thinking got him Marcus Mariota and Taylor Heineke for a combined $32 million, and Desmond Ridder in the draft. So he has some good things on his resume, but no, I don't think it was a good hire.
I mean, he's been a good offensive coordinator, and he did take Derrick Henry and made him better when he was there. Like, he made him a superstar. He recognized that he was a superstar and made him better, and Tannehill was a pretty good quarterback in that system. It is disturbing what he did in Atlanta, and I don't understand it from this standpoint. We've got to find someone that with quarterback experience that has mentored quarterbacks. He's got none of that at all.
I think he sold him on the Tannehill transformation. The guy flunked out in Miami. He was
Plus the run game.
He was traded as a backup to Tennessee. He backed up Mariota at the beginning. So he took a guy that no one else in the league thought was still a starting quarterback, and he had the highest passer rating in the league 1 year, 33 touchdown passes. I don't say that as a way of endorsing the hire. I'm just trying to make the devil's advocate as to here is a quarterback success story on the guy's resume. I give it a B-.
Yeah, but when it came to the playoffs and they had to use Ryan Tannehill, he threw the ball 7 for 14, 8 for 14. Listen, he was smart. He gave the ball to Derrick Henry. But Derrick
really,
Henry,
their defense lost those playoff games, right? Was it like 35-31 the one game?
Yeah. But with Henry, he was hurt 1 year before Smith got there, and he didn't get the ball enough. So credit him for giving Michael Jordan the ball, I guess. But I also think that led directly to Tannehill's success. We all remember that Tennessee team. It was Henry, play action, go back, 9 guys in the box for Henry.
For A.J.
And Tannehill had wide open people. Yep. You don't have Derrick Henry here.
He's a guy who's supposed to use tight ends quite a bit. Do you think, Andrew, this is a good situation for Pat Freiermuth then? He didn't use Kyle Pitts the way I thought he would, but overall, if you look at Jonnu Smith and others in Tennessee, they were utilized quite a bit.
I actually think Hayward's a guy that, if I'm Connor Hayward, I like this hire because he's got a reputation for finding jack-of-all-trades, Swiss Army knife players like Patterson and Jonnu Smith and finding a way to use those guys. I don't think they knew really what Hayward was in the Canada offense. Is he an H-back? Is he a tight end? Is he a tweener? I mean, so I think it benefits him. I don't want to build my offense around Pat Freiermuth. I don't think he's Kelsey. I don't think he's Kittle. I don't think he's Sam Laporta. I don't think he's a top 5, top 10 tight end. I would not hire a coach because he's going to do great work with running backs and tight ends. You're in quarterback purgatory right now.
Aren't they already running the ball well?
Yes. And the other thing is, how important is it to run the ball? The last 5 Super Bowl champions averaged, they were 20th in the league on average. You don't win by running anymore. This isn't 1974. So that's what frustrates me. They didn't even say that at the press conferences, Bob. Both Rooney and Tomlin talked about how it was important to find a coach who could develop and bring along a quarterback. They didn't do that. They lied to us.
It seems like what they hired was, let's find the best guy for the personnel we have right now, as opposed to finding a guy that could put a system together and maybe over time you find that. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying, in my opinion, that's what they did. No, I would have rather gotten a guy with a better system than a guy that can fit the players that they have. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt to the Freiermuth question. I do think it's good for Freiermuth. I think they will use him more down the field.
Who's the most talented guy on this offense? Do we all agree?
The most talented? Pickens.
Pickens.
Yeah.
Yes?
A.J. Brown had big numbers.
Not as big as when he went somewhere else.
Well, he had pretty big numbers at the end of it, which is why he ended up getting what they got from Philadelphia, the money that he got. So he had numbers. But, all right, let's talk about the process itself, because
that's my bigger issue.
Well, that's my issue, because I told you all along I like Kubiak quite a bit, and I thought they would look in his direction. He did not have what they wanted, which was play calling experience. But when you say you're looking for someone with play calling experience, you're limiting the field, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't think Arthur Smith gets hired by the Steelers that quickly if he doesn't have former Steelers as references on his resume, on his job application. If he never works,
I agree with that.
If he never works for Munchak, Malarkey, Wisenhunt, and with LeBeau, you think Art Rooney says to Mike, hey, bring this guy in and talk to him? I don't think so. I think they at least cast a much wider net.
Why would you confine yourself like that by saying he has to have previous NFL play calling experience? You know who doesn't?
Ben Johnson.
The two
All the guys
hottest
who are
play
hot-
callers
yeah,
in the
exactly.
NFL.
Hot
Ben
commodities.
Johnson and Bobby Slovic had no play calling
Well, that's them
experience in
being
the
burned by
NFL.
the Canada experience.
It is,
what
but
that
Canada's
That's
different.
scarred by Canada.
Big difference between no play calling experience in the NFL and no NFL
agree
experience
with that.
whatsoever.
Yeah, Canada
That's
was
Canada.
brought in as a quarterback coach, never had that responsibility. These guys
And the
did.
Kubiak thing proves, because people wanted to say this week, well, these guys didn't want to talk to the Steelers. They think the Steelers situation stinks. You think New Orleans' situation is better than
No.
Pittsburgh's? Their head coach is a lame duck. That guy could get blown out of there in 1 year. They're $80 million over the cap in New Orleans. And as far as Smith goes, apparently, they were scared he'd get on a plane for Tampa Bay and take that job like this. Apparently, NFL Network said he wants to learn how to be a head coach from Mike Tomlin. Plus, the guy's dad is worth $6 billion. So I don't think it's about the money for
Makes it
him.
a little easier. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks now, because this will directly affect what the Steelers have in their room. Who will be in that room? We'll get into that as we continue right here on the 25th year anniversary of the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We're talking about the direct people affected by this hire of Arthur Smith will be the quarterbacks. Largely, you got Kenny Pickett. You may or may not have Mason Rudolph, and you need somebody else. So, Jeff Hathhorn, I want you to look in your crystal ball. Who do you think will be in this room when training camp begins?
Well, Kenny, obviously. A draft pick is the 3. And I think somebody like a Minshew or somebody they're going to bring in. It's not going to be Mason.
Justin Fields, if you had a chance for a low.
So I didn't want to steal
third-round
Pony's thunder, because I love his thought there. And if you look at the numbers, and if it's a 3rd-round pick, it makes all the sense in the world.
Joe, do you want to, before I make my sales pitch?
I have a sales pitch, too, for Russell Wilson. And I saw Jeff Saturday the other day on television saying Russell Wilson would be perfect for Arthur Smith. I don't think it's going to be Rudolph either. Do you think it won't be him because he won't want to come here, or because, as I'm starting to think, I don't know that they want to have that situation with Pickett, because there's already sentiment in the room, it would seem, in favor of Rudolph, right? So you're really creating a potential firestorm there. I don't think it's going to be Mason. I hope it's Russell Wilson. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I want Fields because I think he fits. If you look at Arthur Smith, his quarterbacks, when he went and got Mariota, when he had him in Tennessee, he wants a guy to run his bootlegs, run the play action, be a threat as a runner. And Kenny is a good athlete, not a great athlete. This guy's, he's only getting traded because Chicago is the #1 pick again. Okay, if Carolina had finished with a 7-10 record and they were picking 8th and 12th, they'd go with Fields again this year. He's only available because they can't pass on Caleb Williams. They can't do that. He's a transcendent quarterback. So I want to see a guy that has rushed for 1,000 yards in his career, who I think if you don't confine him to the pocket and let him use his legs, can be a great
So you're going to put that
quarterback.
ahead of his ability in the pocket, because what I've seen in the pocket, he's not all that great at 24
Well, do you
years
think
of
Lamar
age.
Jackson is all that great in the pocket?
Well,
He's won 2 MVP awards.
I understand that.
Right.
But I also think that's the part of the game that has to get better, no matter who it is here. And I thought Mason Rudolph did a pretty good job when he had that, his
Okay,
presence
so
in the
just
pocket.
to go with that, you're saying if you had an option, you had a game to win, you take Mason Rudolph over Fields?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, you make it sound like he's already a finished product.
He's not a finished product, but the cost of acquiring him is not that much.
I would do that. I would do that in a second.
It looks like it may be a
Russell
second or
Wilson.
third round pick, and if that's the case, that's
If it's a 3rd-round
easy.
pick, Who are the Steelers' last 3 third-round picks?
Well,
Darnell
Leal.
Washington, DeMarvin Leal, and Kendrick Green.
Right.
You wouldn't give that up for Justin Fields?
They're not going to get
No, absolutely.
They're not
I'm
going
not
to get
saying he won't. I'm just saying.
Bob, they're not going to get a first-round pick because he's going into the last year of his contract, and I don't think people want to pick up the fifth-year option.
Fifth-year option
because
is
of
the
what you
biggest
said.
problem.
Because of what you said, there's still questions about him.
I don't think they're going to do any of what we're talking about. I think they're going to bring in somebody who's not really a threat to Kenny.
Do you think it's Tannehill?
Could be Tannehill, a Josh Dobbs type, a Case Keenum type.
Well, then what are we doing next year, Joe? I mean, I'm the first guy.
Ask them.
Well, I was the first guy to profess my love towards Kenny Pickett, and I'm even out on that now. You just can't give in. You won 10
They
games
want to
last
find
year.
out. They want
Joe,
to
you
find
can
out
still
what they
find
have.
out, even if you brought
I'm
in
not
Russell.
representing them.
I
I'm telling
know.
you what I think they're going to do.
Well, I agree with you, but I'm saying you can still find out about Kenny by bringing in Russell Wilson or Fields. They're not 4 or 5 year, $100 million commitments to these guys. Okay, if
they're true about an open competition, then they're not going to worry about
But
that.
they're not true to an open
they're
competition.
not, because they actually know a competition is the worst thing in the world. Competition divides your team. There's never been a the Trubisky thing wasn't a competition. They say they want competition. You don't want competition. You don't want your team not knowing who their leader is, in my
The
opinion.
last position in the world
Exactly.
you want competition for.
Right.
Right?
So are you anointing Kenny Pickett as the number 1 guy then?
Am I or are they?
They.
I
but
want them
would
to
you-
bring in Russell Wilson and give him the ball.
Yeah, but they said yes, but also there'll be an
Well,
open
that's 'cause you
competition.
say that.
So if
You
you're
have to
Mason
say that.
Rudolph, then you obviously look at those words and you say to yourself, I don't know if I'm going to get a legitimate chance here, but will he get a better chance anywhere else?
You would
Mason
have to
Rudolph?
have 0 other chances. None. In order to come back
Bob,
here if you're Mason. Why would
Joe-
you believe anything they told you?
Joe listed off all the quarterbacks that Arthur Smith has had in Atlanta and even going back to Tennessee. Do any of them play like Mason Rudolph? One guy did, and that was Matt Ryan, and he could not wait to get rid of him.
Right.
So
No,
I don't see
get
him
that.
fitting in this offense.
I get that. And
Yeah,
if
that
it-
is a problem. Although, if I'm Mason and I'm considering my options, having said that I think the Steelers are determined to find out about Pickett, Tomlin's also proven he'll bench and bury Pickett. So
Yeah.
if I'm Mason, I'm thinking, I know the personnel here, and I might have a chance if this guy buries himself again.
All right, so officially you all think Pickett will be here, of course. Then you don't think Mason will be here, but
No.
you will think it'll be a draft pick and one of these veterans that we're talking about. That's
Yeah.
what it's going
Yep.
to be. Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll find out. It's going to be a good offseason from that point of view. Always talking quarterbacks. When we come back, we're going to shift the focus, and we'll come back later to the Super Bowl. But Jake Gensel, what do the Penguins, Kyle Dubas, what do they do with him? His contract is over at the end of this year. Can they afford to just play it out? Do they trade him? Do they sign him? And how much? If so, we'll talk about it next right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, welcome back. Talking about the Penguins who began the second half of their season Tuesday night. Winnipeg in town. They're right now out of the playoff picture, which leads to a very interesting conundrum, Joe Starkey. They have to figure out, number one, if they are a playoff team, and in 3 weeks they'll have a better idea. How about if they're not? What do they do with Jake Gensel? Do they sign him? They'll have room to do it financially. If his price meets theirs, what do you think will happen?
I think if he's willing to take the Penguin discount that other guys have taken, that they should sign him.
How about if he's not?
Then they shouldn't sign him. Then they should trade him, because the last thing you want to do is let him go at the end of the year for nothing more than a draft pick.
What's a discount?
$8 million, somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe $9 million, between 8 and 9. The Sid discount, I would say. And if he wants more than that, first of all, I'd be very careful if I was him, because he's going to hit the magic age of 30, go out on the open market to a team where he's not going to be playing with Sidney Crosby. I don't know that someone's going to be willing to pay him $10 or $11 million a year.
Yeah,
I kind of doubt
That's a great point, because Crosby, he's been the best winger, Jeff, that Crosby's had, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing, they're all in. Chips are all in. Gensel's part of that. Like, I'm doing whatever I can to sign him. And if you sign him for 3, 4, 5 years, and after 2 years you realize it's all going off the cliff, you can trade him. At least that would bring something back for you, because you would anticipate that his numbers would stay pretty good still playing with Sidney Crosby.
Wait, so you are trading him then?
No, I'm signing him.
You're signing him.
I'm signing him. And then in 2 years, if it really falls off the cliff, then that's a trade piece I could have to get some draft picks back.
Maybe I've got him pegged wrong, but didn't his agent come out and say, like,
It's going to be
it's
ugly.
going to be really ugly?
Yeah.
I mean, that
He
doesn't
did.
sound
He's
like
already turned down
that
one
doesn't
contract
sound like
offer.
he's going to take a 3 or 4 year deal and take a hometown discount.
No, it doesn't.
I still think they're backed into a corner. I think he's got him over a barrel, and I think Dubas has got to take. I think he's got to take it. I think he's got to give him a 5 or 6 year deal, maybe even longer than that, and pay him the $10 million.
Because they pretty much said, we're doing this now to try to win now. This is our one last chance. So you do, because they're trying to win now.
Can't you make a hockey trade? And
What
bring in a
are you
different kind of
legitimately
player?
going to get for him?
Well, that
You're going to get
I don't
enough.
know.
Joe,
I remember
future-
James Neal for Patrick Hornquist. You make a hockey trade for a different kind of player.
Yeah, that seems more like an off-season trade to me, though, where like.
Yeah, how many?
I think that's a sign-in
The
trade.
other thing I'm just, I agree with you, by the way. I think a hockey trade I'd be fine with because you.
What is a hockey trade in with regard to Jake Gensel, though? What would you get?
Well, you got to get players that can help you win now, too.
Yeah.
It's got to be one of those trades.
You got to find the right team. I think it's a limited pool of teams.
I didn't understand Dubas coming out and saying, oh, we're going to wait to talk until the All-Star break. This should be a daily, this is his number one priority. I don't.
What are they talking? They need to
What
know
else
his
is he
number.
doing?
They need to know his number, period. And then you operate from there. And the idea of Jake Gensel at 5 years for $50 million, the idea of, hey, a couple of years, we fall off a cliff, we trade him. What if he does? Then what do you do?
Joe, I mean, if he wants market value, I think he's going to get 7 or 8 years on the open market if he goes to free agency.
Wow.
I mean,
At
look
$10 million?
Look at like William Nylander.
Yeah, but he's younger by 2 years.
There's just not, I understand he plays with Sid. There's just not a lot of guys that become available who are 40-goal scorers.
I mean, I love
Part
Jake
of that
Gensel.
is playing with Sidney Crosby,
I
too.
love him, but he's very
Joe, no doubt,
slightly
man.
built, has taken a beating, and he's hitting 30.
I don't disagree with that, but I liked Ryan Whitney's point on this. He said coaches and organizations love guys where they look at their numbers each year and they're super consistent. That way you know what you're getting. And
Well,
I just
their
think,
first offer was far off what I think he wants, so they're going to have to work their way up, right?
but the bottom line
That's
for me is I would
negotiation.
not trade him
yeah.
at salary. I don't think you can punt on this season and trade him.
No, that's what I say. I think they're
For
gonna
draft
sign
picks or prospects, I'd like to do what Joe said.
I think he's going to get $9 million a year, and this organization will give it to him. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Super Bowl, who these guys like, and how important is this for the quarterback, specifically Brock Purdy. We'll get into it next right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. On this 25th anniversary of the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown, we're taking a look once a week at some of the magnificent plays that have happened during this time. Who can forget 75 yards? Willie Parker to the house. That was in February 2006 at Super Bowl 40. And, of course, you got this play coming up from Antoine Randall L. to Hines Ward for the touchdown. But big plays and all part of what we've been talking about for the last 25 years. So now, as we look ahead, we're going to talk about what's going on with this Super Bowl. And Andrew, I'll start with you on this one. Brock Purdy, everyone wants to call him a systems quarterback, which is what I thought every quarterback really was, a systems quarterback. A lot of people look at that and say it's a negative slap at him. How important is this game for him to win it and to play well in it?
Well, I think it's huge for his legacy. I think he's in a bad situation right now where if he loses the game, the narrative is going to be not good enough. They need to find a quarterback that it can elevate
After
the
2
team.
years?
Well, that's what happened with Garoppolo. They went to a Super Bowl with Garoppolo. They traded up for Trey Lance, Bob. I mean, we know Kyle Shanahan has a quick.
Trey Lance did not, Garoppolo didn't do what Purdy has done, in my opinion. He's been a better quarterback than Garoppolo. Don't you agree after 2 years? He's had two bad starts.
Well, I would probably agree with that. He's threw for 30 touchdowns this year and had the highest passer rating in the league. So, yeah. And then I think if he wins, they're going to say, well, look at Kyle Shanahan's system. That's what made him a winner.
Yeah.
Do you disagree with that? I mean,
I think that's probably
it's
right.
a toxic conversation is what it really is.
I'm not sold on him.
Me neither.
And I don't apologize for that. I've watched 2 games almost in a row, 2 of the last 4, where he blew up. Like every time he went back, I thought he was going to throw a pick. He's throwing balloon balls, hospital balls in the air where guys are jumping up and getting killed. When I watch a great quarterback,
well, you saw him win a game late in the game, didn't you?
or even a very good one like Josh Allen, Mahomes, when they're having a rough game, I still get the feeling every time they drop back, something good's going to happen. This guy has blow-up ability, Jeff. So I'm wondering, he could prove me and a lot of other people wrong if he has a great Super Bowl and outplays Mahomes.
It sounds like you're describing Kenny Pickett.
I'm not convinced on him.
Right, though? I mean, his playoffs have looked a lot like Pickett, where he's come through.
Yeah, but 30
end of the
touchdowns.
He has at the end.
30 touchdowns in a system, like, isn't there more to it than just a system?
He's had a good
you still
year.
have
Do you
to make the
remember
throws.
Minka
He's had a
Fitzpatrick
good year.
all of a sudden, all alone coming after him here in Pittsburgh? It was week 2, whatever that week was.
Opener.
And he
Week
spun
1.
around, right? and missed him. Made him miss. He made me
I mean,
miss.
listen, he's got great players around him. I mean, who wouldn't want some of those weapons that he has? But he still has to make the throws. He's been in tough situations. That Green Bay game, I mean, they were up against the wall, and he led them down the field.
He
I
did.
mean, you got to say something for the way the guys played. It's like Joe Montana wasn't just a system quarterback, and I'm not saying he's there yet, but you could make that call because it was the best offensive mind ever in the history of the game. And Bill Walsh.
Would Purdy have succeeded here, and would Pickett be a way better?
I don't
in
think
San
Purdy would have
Francisco?
gotten a
It's
chance.
a great
here.
argument.
Oladuka never got a snap here. I don't know if Purdy would have been different.
if he did.
Real quick, I have 20 seconds. Prediction: who wins?
Niners.
Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Niners. 2-2. We got a tie.
Team with the better quarterback wins, Bob.
Brock Purdy, MVP, baby. Mark it down. All right. Also mark this down. You know, a lot of people have bought vehicles from number one Cochran over the years, and now it's your turn to sell them a car. That's right. Sell them a car. It's super easy. It's hassle-free, and you get payment on the spot. The best part is number one Cochran can pay more for used cars because they sell more used cars. Sell yours entirely online now at Cochran.com or stop by any of their 19 stores. Number one Cochran buys cars. All right, it's been fun. We are done. Thanks for joining us. Super Bowl next week. You'll see it right here on KDKA. For Andrew Fillipponi, Joe Starkey, and Jeff Hathhorn, I'm Bob Pompeani. Have a great week. We'll see you back here next week for another edition of the number one Cochran Sports Showdown. Have a good night.